coming to get you, Barbara.
12 proudly displays the television seal of good practice as a subscriber.
Our national anthem.
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria. First eyewitness accounts of this grisly development came from people who were understandably frightened and almost incoherent. Officials and newsmen first discounted the eyewitness descriptions as being beyond belief. However,
This is Rockstone TV.
Well, welcome to Subtle Moments of Absurdity After Dark. I'm your host, Mike Rockstone. Oh, hello there. Yeah, and today we'll be getting into the Phoenix phenomenon. And just so many windows to click here. Okay, I think I got it. All right. Oh, yeah, I'm good. We're good. Everything's fine. So the Phoenix phenomenon. What is this? What is this 2040 prophecy about a cataclysm? Well, honestly, I haven't heard anybody talking about it. I mean, except for Jason Breshears of ARCHAIX. I mean, that's where I first heard about it, and pretty much it's just the ARCHAIX community that I see talking about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that there's any such prophecy, you know. So that in itself is pretty curious, I guess. But the thing about Jason Breshears and the ARCHAIX work is so ARCHAIX. It stands for Advanced Research of Chronological History of AIX, and so it's the chronological history thing that's so curious, really, because our calendar, you know, the calendars are all. I mean, from what I understand, it's like 2017 in Ethiopia, you know, like. But what does that even mean? You know, 2017. Since when? Since what? Well, it's the Common Era, right? It's CE. It's Common. See, I'm a little gray, you know. I've been around a few years, and most of my life, that thing that we're calling Common Era, we called AD. Now, AD, it stands for Anno Domini, which is Latin for Year of Our Lord. Jesus. Right? And then you've got BC, which is before Christ, they say. Or now it's at BCE, before Common Era. But what is this calendar anyway? So that's exactly what ARCHAIX is all about, you know. Synthesizing the calendars, because you know, in India they've got this like different way of looking at the calendar, right? They got the yuga cycles, or whatever they're called. And well, the ancient Babylonians have the Shar, which is a day and not a year. Okay. And so that actually is a point of some contention. So it's I just want to kind of focus here a little bit real quick on calendars, because Because what do you mean it's 2026? You know, because like 2,000 years ago, they weren't like, oh, it's year zero. No, it's not. In fact, even see, I'm not sure if I fully understand this, but I think I think the Vatican, like, well, clearly it was the Vatican that created this Anno Domini system. And that's but why and how? I mean, it seems so arbitrary, right? Like it wasn't instituted until like somewhere around 530. But the year wasn't 530 when they started doing it, right? It was whatever year they thought it was. And then the Catholic Church said, Pope, he just no, it's not that year anymore. Now it's the year 530. Okay, and then 500 and whatever years back from that date is is where the Christ story takes place, allegedly, and for entertainment purposes only. So 2026, I mean, it doesn't mean anything, on its own. But the genius, the pure genius of what Jason has done is he's he, he smoothed it out. He like got the calendar going back to well, so there's this the Anno Mundi system, right? So we're in this Anno Domini system, even though we call it Common Era, it's still the Anno Domini system. And so before that, or I guess parallel to that, or whatever, is the Anno Mundi calendar. So year one of Anno Mundi would be year one of the world, right? Because Mundi is world. So year one of the world. But see, year one of the world isn't really like year one of the world. It's like year one of basically like Adam and Eve, the Genesis story. Because in the ARCHAIX model, the story of Adam and Eve is not the story of the first man and woman created by God. It's sort of an allegorical story of humanity, right? And for those of you who don't know, we talk about Adam and Eve. And Adam means like human. Adam literally means humanity. Yeah. Yeah. So, is it really a leap to say the story is an allegory about humanity if the main character's name is literally humanity? But it's a replenishing, right? The story in Genesis is it became void and without form, right? The earth. So then it was like a replenishing and a reestablishing of there's the description of the firmament, right? So that's actually pretty important because essentially, so in the ARCHAIX model, the earth is in one of two states at any given time. And the first state of the world, as we learn in Genesis, is this firmament state, which is essentially it's what Jason calls a vapor canopy. And this is not a unique concept. Like, he didn't invent this. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I'll be honest, like, he didn't invent like anything that he talks about. He just didn't. What he's done is he's found these things, and then like brought them to our attention. He put them all in the ARCHAIX bucket, and so the vapor canopy. In fact, Dr. Hovind is the first person. For those of you who know Dr. Hovind, he's the first one that I really heard about this canopy situation, and he describes it as being an ice canopy. Well, you can imagine. I mean, it's pretty cold, so they say, up there in the far reaches of our atmosphere. So, not terribly out of line to imagine that the vapor would get up there and then crystallize. So once it does, though, when it does crystallize like that up there in the atmosphere, it creates a like a dome or a bubble, depending on your understanding. All right. So, but it increases air pressure because of that closed system, right? So, the the environment that results from the vapor canopy is one that's like very, very rich in oxygen, and there's no ice at the poles, because the ice that was at the poles went up into the sky, and it's the ice in the sky now. So the vapor canopy environment is conducive for, like, this is where you get the megafauna and the megaflora, the dinosaurs, the dinosaurs, things like that. So the first thing that you got to know is uniformitarianism. It's for the birds, man, because it's just it's a defunct model. I mean, I studied geology at Sonoma State, and that's what they teach you. They teach you uniformitarianism and the strata of the layers of soil and rock or whatever. So if you if you find a fossil in the Jurassic layer, it's a Jurassic fossil, and that layer's a Jurassic layer because it has a Jurassic fossil in it. And that's the way uniformitarianism works. But it's circular reasoning, and quite frankly, all the dating methods are bullshit. And so what you've got to do here is sort of is something that's called the suspension of disbelief. Yeah, the suspension of disbelief. So there's two states that the Earth is in. I mean, one of two states at any time. So if it's not in this canopy situation, then it's pretty much like it is now, where you have ice at the poles. And now I guess, I don't know if it's a matter of speculation. I feel like there's a pole shift that's involved or something. So maybe is one way to think of it. I mean, the poles are in one configuration, and then you've got it like it is now. Then if you switch the polarity, it causes this vapor canopy to form. That's one way you can think of it. So I'm just laying the groundwork here. I've got a video that we're going to look at, but I'm laying the groundwork because I think it's important to understand where he's coming from, because it's not what they teach you in school, but it is what is found in the historical record. So that's sort of the ironic conundrum, I suppose, of the position that that ARCHAIX presents. Because, like I said, he's not like Jason. He's not coming up with anything original. I mean, what is original about his work is this. What is original is this. None of the facts that he presents are original to his research, right? Like he always has a source, and go back to as far back as you can go, right? Like old books, and so everything has a source. And so what he's basically doing is he's plotting out the timeline, chronological history. That's what this is about, chronological history. So from year 1 Anno Mundi to now, which I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's the year 5920 in the Anno Mundi calendar. So 5,920 years since Adam and Eve. Oh, we should talk about one more thing. Years. So in our current calendar and the way that that the seasons and the days work out is that we've got 1 year is 365.24 days, right? 365 days a year. But did you know it wasn't always like that? It wasn't. For thousands of years, civilizations all around the world calculated a year as 360 days, which is perfect, right? It's a perfect circle, 360 degrees. So, what do you imagine would cause the entire world to add 5.24 days to the calendar? Oh, I know. I don't know actually what happened. Okay, so what Jason points out in the historical records here, and this is something you can look up. Like, I think even Wikipedia talks about it, but it's like in the year 713, I think 713 before Common Era. In fact, this is even in the Bible, but it's recorded like all around the world. This happened that the sun stopped. We watched the sun rise and traverse the sky, and set in the west, and there's one day. That's one day. But in 713 BC, the sun stopped moving. It stopped for a minute. I guess it had to think about it. Maybe did a little zigzag. I don't know. But then it retrograded, right? Like it went backwards. What? The sun went backwards? Yeah, it went backwards. And so it added 5 days to our calendar for each year. Okay. Like, I can totally accept that, but it's a little difficult. It's a little difficult to reconcile with Newtonian physics, right? Because, I mean, you can't argue with the fact that this happened in history. It happened. It just doesn't jive with the Newtonian idea, man. Like, if the Earth is spinning and at the same time it's like moving and it's going like 1,000 miles an hour or something, and the sun is just sitting there, right? He's just sitting a big old ball of gas, big old ball of gas right there, just not moving, and the Earth, but he's spinning, he's going around that sucker. in order for the sun to stop and then go backwards in our sky, it would mean the Earth would have to stop doing this thing, right? Like, whoops, and then maybe like go backwards, like 5 days worth. Wait. I don't know. It's just what it's what Jason would call a data point. Just put that on the shelf. I mean, it may be hard to believe, but it is true. Oh yes. There's another aspect of this, which is the sun. So I guess when there's the vapor canopy or whatever, like they say, I mean, it's ice, right? Like you're looking up at the sky and it's ice. So and there's no clouds and there's no rain and there's no wind. But there's I don't know, like you can't see the sun or something. Like you see the light of the sun, but so they counted the days by the turning of the stars in a vapor canopy, which is why a shar is it's a day. It's one turning of the stars. And another odd thing is that at that time, see, right now we've got Polaris, right? Polaris. And Polaris is right there. It's like center of the sky and it don't move. Everything goes around Polaris. But back then it was Draconis, I think. I don't know. All right, so we'll put that on the shelf. Because then I'm going to start this video, right? We're going to look at it, and then I'm going to compare. Then there's like a chart that we're going to look at so that we understand when he's talking about stuff, like where on the timeline that is, because that's helpful to know. But he starts out, I think, by saying there were two sons. My pappy was a pistol. I'm a son of a gun. There were two sons, and one of them died. Dead star. And I believe that's what he calls the dark satellite. See, there's three. So there's the Phoenix, and these are all on their own like time cycle. There's the Phoenix, then there's the Nemesis X, and then there's the dark satellite. And I'm not sure, dark satellite, if that's the previous sun or not. So another thing he says is kind of like hard to kind of put together, but even so in the Newtonian model, right, they show you the sun's at the center and then the planets are going, Venus or Mercury, Venus, and Earth is the third rock from the sun, and then you've got Mars, etc., right? But they're all like on a flat plane, like a horizontal plane. So this is part of it. It's kind of like, I'm not sure that I fully get it, but so he's like, yeah, but this is not the right solar system for Earth, like it was in this other solar system. And so, but the plane, so we're like this, right? But the plane of the other solar system, it comes in like perpendicular. which is why. So this phoenix phenomenon is always like throughout history, right? It's always seen coming like from the north to the south. We never have anything in our skies traverse north to south because it's always just like east to west plane. So he's saying like this is like an intersection of the where the two like solar systems like intercede. And look, man, I mean, I don't know. This is what I'm saying. Like, let's look at this together. So, I am going to pull up a calendar chart. And well, Grandma, what big eyes you have. Let me see here. Let's just see here. Oh, okay. Maybe I had all right, forget about it. Forget about it. All right, here we are. This thing here. Yeah. Let's see if I press this button. Nope. Oh, there's a really cool background though. It's actually the sky from outside here. Okay. It's just that I made it look really cool because I got it like that. Oh, there we are. Let's see if I can make that. No, yes, no, yes, not that. Okay. All right. I really want you to be able to see that, and maybe I can make it bigger. What I need is, and I have it. I just didn't set it up. But how come when I make it bigger, it looks smaller? All right. Well, if I make it smaller, does it look bigger? Okay, that just blowing my mind. Okay. Well, anyway, I do have another screen. I just too lazy to set it up. All right. Okay. So yeah, this is the chart we're looking at here. So over to the left, I don't know. Can you see my? Here, let me see something here. Let me see about this. Okay, maybe there's that. You can see my mousey. Okay. All right. So year one Anna Mundi that we were talking about there, the Adam and Eve, it starts here at this 3895. So as it says up here, 3895. Year one Anna Mundi. But it's also the end is the beginning, right? The snake eats his tail, so the tail is in the mouth of the snake. At any rate, so they survived the full server reset, let's just say. And they start out, and here's a vapor canopy world. And so there is 1,656 years of this vapor canopy. And I believe that that's the time of the Anunnaki, which are not what you've heard them to be. So we'll get into Anunnaki here in a second. But you can see this event happens in 3895. It creates this vapor canopy. This is our Adam and Eve. And then we get all the way over here to 2239 in this BC. And that's the Great Flood. That is the flood of Noah. That is the waters of the deep breaking open. And like the vapor canopy gets smashed and chunks of ice are falling out of the sky, I guess. And then it kind of turns into what we have now, where there's ice on the poles and such and so forth. Okay, so I think that's enough of that. And where am I? Man, I don't know. Oh, here I am. Okay. Well, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to we're going to play a video, and it's like what he calls it, a primer. Understanding Phoenix and Nemesis X and ARCHAIX primer. This is on YouTube. And see if I can get this right. No, wait. I had Okay. Maybe like that. I do it like this. Okay. And I might stop and start this, might pause it for some commentary. I don't know. Okay. I do need to set up the second screen because otherwise. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and let it play.
There is an object hidden in the sky. Our predecessors studied its appearances. Like a vast clockwork apparatus, it appeared on a fixed timeline and disappeared whole civilizations. They have left us records of this invisible eye in the sky and how they hid underground from its face. They feared the return of the Phoenix. Originally, there were 2 suns in the sky and no moon. But something happened, the death of a sun. It was the Nemesis Cataclysm in 5239 BC. This event gave rise to an ancient calendrical system, the Anunnaki Ner periods, or Great Year, of 600 years. This involved the passage of epochs that were exactly 216,000 turnings of the stars each, or days. 2 Ner periods after the Nemesis Cataclysm was 432,000 turnings of the stars, or 1,200 years.
Okay. So it's data packed, like it's a lot. This is something that's kind of annoying about StreamYard is if I want to go back to the other screen, I have to get rid of that one and then bring the other one back. So, oh man, it is kind of a pain. Oh, I have an idea. I do have an idea. It'll make it easier. Let me see here. Okay, this. All right. So the let's see. Yeah. Boop. Nope. Bop. Yep. Okay. The 600 years to the Anunnaki was like a great year or something. I don't remember what he said. But basically, 6, 12. Yeah. The Anunnaki period is right here in this vapor canopy situation. And I think probably we should address the Anunnaki in the room. Because so what, just real quick to recap, this 3895, the year 1 of Anno Mundi is the tail end, is the tail side of the Nemesis X cycle, right? Nemesis X has a cycle that intersects our timeline. These are Phoenix. I think these are all Phoenix events. 178. Yeah. Okay. So these are all. This is the regular cycle of Phoenix events that happen. And Nemesis X, it has its own, like, I think it's like a 792-year cycle or something. And so what he's saying is that this is the tail end of that Nemesis X event in 3895 BC. All right. The Anunnaki, because he's going to get into it in this video, and it's important that you understand what he means when he's talking about the Anunnaki, because it's not what you've been told, right? Like the Zechariah Sitchin story of oops, there we go. Zechariah Sitchin story of like they came from the sky. Actually, what Jason teaches is that they're survivors of the that Nemesis X Cataclysm, and they were living underground, right? They were underground, and but they also preserved some of the technology. So that's why they seemed like gods, because they were technologically advanced. So that's what he calls the Technolithic period. The in the antediluvian world, the pre-flood world. Okay. So yeah, there are no aliens in the ARCHAIX model. Only misunderstandings. And I'm going to play this video as soon as I figure out what tab to hit. Okay.
When suddenly the moon appeared in the sky in 4039 BC. This event was the capture of Luna, called by some as the capture flood. Humans on the surface suffered a terrible cataclysm. Old traditions tell us of cultures in antiquity that referred to themselves as pre-Selenites, or people who lived before the moon appeared. Humans rebuilt, but a far worse destruction unfolded at the appearance of the Phoenix. This was the Genesis 1 reset pole shift that was so destructive that the survivors believed it began a new heavens and new earth. And later chronographers used this event in 3895 BC as year 1 of the pre-flood calendar. Thus, the
All right, I just want to interject real quick. When he's talking about that was the cataclysm that ended the previous world and started the new, like it was so complete, right? Like it almost wiped out all of humanity. Go forth, be fruitful, multiply, that sort of thing. Because it almost wiped out humanity entirely. That's the thing that's projected, because now we're like at the tail end of this. So the year 2178 in our calendar is it's like the end of the whole cycle. So in 2178, as the theory goes, in 2178 it's like a full server reset, and so it leads back to, right, the snake eating its tail. It leads back to an Adam and Eve, new heavens and new earth, beginning another year 1 Anno Mundi. So I don't know about you. I don't have any plans of being around here in the year 2178, but I'll probably be around, right? Like in the next 14 years. That's the 2040. That's the Phoenix. So, all right. I don't know why I thought it was important. And away we go.
Anno Mundi calendar is likewise the Phoenix calendar, this strange visitor being referred to as a fiery flaming sword which prevents mankind's return to the Edenic state by a repetitive series of destructive resets and edits. The fall of man was not a fall into sin, but a cataclysmic pole shift and the fall of man's infrastructure. Then 216,000 turnings of the stars after the appearance of the moon, the Nemesis X object appeared in the sky in 3439 BC and caused the Gihon flood. A third of the human race is drowned, and in the aftermath, a benefactor appeared among Neolithic survivors, leading a troop of men who were technologically advanced and which made them appear godlike. This was the appearance of Homo Annuna.
Okay. All right. I just needed to make a correction, because apparently Homo Annuna, later to be called the Anunnaki or whatever, they don't show up until after the flood of Gihon, or the Noah's flood, the end of the vapor canopy and stuff. So when the Noah's flood ends and most of the earth is wiped out again, then all of a sudden these Homo Inuna show up, and they came on boats. They didn't come on ships in the space spaceship. They come on the boat, a water ship. Anyway, all right. I just thought I should clear that up because leading into this, it was like, oh, Anunnaki was in the vapor canopy. That's not true. When the vapor canopy ended, that's when they start. Okay.
In Babylonia, after the flood, they were called the Anunnaki. This began the Technolithic period. The Sumerian sexagesimal system, adopted by many ancient cultures of the 60 and 600 year periods or great years, was a day count system, diurnal, and sky watchers counted the turnings of the stars around the pole star to determine each day. The original Olmec calendar was constructed of days, as was the Mayan long count Bactans. The 216,000, 432,000, and 864,000 turnings of the stars was the original Vedic counting system as well. The 13 Bactans of the Mayan long count began from a destructive event in 3113 BC that began a 1,872,000 day countdown, or 13 Bactans of 144,000 days each, to a future destruction of North America that will happen in 2046. The Mayan Temple of the Cross and the Sumerian systems were all day count calendars. The Great Pyramid of Giza construction at the site called Akuzan.
All right. I also thought, because it should clarify here, because you said 2046. And I said 2040. Well, that's because 2040 is the Phoenix, and then 2046 is Nemesis. And then I guess 2178 is the dark satellite, man. I don't really know. I mean, just we're all learning here. But I thought that was worth mentioning. So he claims that the pyramid was made during this Technolithic period, right after the flood, because there's another flood coming. It's called the Ogygian flood. So basically the Anunnaki are here between, they show up after Noah's flood, right? And then there's the next flood, the Ogygian flood, and I guess we don't see him again. I don't know. But basically, so they had the technology from the previous developed civilization, right? And so this is the Technolithic period when they use that technology. And so Enki, some of you know about the story about Enki and Enlil of the Anunnaki. So in ARCHAIX, Enki is the same as the biblical Enoch. And he's part of this Technolithic era where he is the architect of the pyramid. And then of course, Enoch doesn't, there's no recording of Enoch dying. They say Enoch was, he was taken out of the game, He, he got to exit the holosphere, right? The simulation, the simulacrum, or whatever. So he was the architect of the pyramids, and then they were built over a period of 90 years, and all of the inner workings of the Great Pyramid, although later on other pyramids show up all over the planet, none of them have the inner workings that the Great Pyramid in Giza has. And so that's the mystery, I guess. And then the thing about the Great Pyramid, it was never finished, or something. It's waiting for that capstone, waiting for that stone the builders rejected, I guess. Okay, so let's brings us up to where we're at here.
Was finished in the year 2815 BC by the culture who opposed the 7 kings of the Sumerian king list, who ruled 241,200 shars, or turnings of the stars, a period that is only 670 years by the Sumerian factoring of 360 days a year. These were the dragon kings, according to the Chinese. The pyramid was believed to possess a secret about the future fate of humankind, to provide humanity an escape or exodus to a better place. Suddenly, the Anuna made their exodus before the cataclysm that began the post-Technolithic period, also called the abandonment and shock period. The more primitive cultures left behind, they built sky-facing monuments in gigantic patterns with prayers and messages in geometry facing the sky, so the Anuna would come back down and live among them again. But the Anuna had deceived the people that they had returned to the moon, when in fact they were living in deep earth biospheres awaiting the coming Phoenix destruction, an object known to them as the Apen. The power vacuum gave rise to the Nephilim dynasty, or Pentapolis of the 7 kings, that was then destroyed in the 670th year, or 2239 BC, by the Phoenix that caused the Great Flood. This was the 1656th year of the Book of Genesis, or the antediluvian world, and it was 432,000 turnings of the stars since the appearance of the Anuna and Enki in 3439 BC.
Man, I'm tripping. I'm like all over this timeline because I think I was right the first time when I was like, yeah, all right, the vapor canopy era was the Anunnaki time, because that's what he just said right now. I'd go back to the chart, but there's too many clicking things. And I'm lazy. But I think that's what he's saying right now, right? Like they scooted. They got out of there because they knew it was coming. 1,656 years after the year one Anno Mundi, after the the beginning, the Adam and Eve and all that. The vapor canopy, it was 1,656 years, and just before Noah's flood, I guess they skipped out. Now, I guess that's what happened. I mean, you tell me, right? We're watching the same video. I think that's what he said. Okay.
Or just 1,200 years. In May 2239 BC, the whole sky fractured like glass as iceberg-sized pieces fell upon the world, followed by weeks of torrential rains. The sky fell and caused the Great Flood as the vapor canopy collapsed. Megafauna and large reptiles, amphibians, and their tropical worlds perished as the atmospheric pressure dropped and the air became thin and unbreathable to larger life forms. The moisture of the collapsing vapor canopy deluged the tropics. But at the Arctic and Antarctic, then the sudden drop in temperature buried these regions in packed ice and thousands of feet of permafrost and snow, perfectly preserving hundreds of millions of plants and megafauna in icy tombs. The ancients referred to this as the birth of the sun, survivors initiating the sun calendar system now that the vapor canopy had been removed and the full sky could be seen. As Sumerian culture faded toward their end, they introduced a new god, Utu, the sun, in the same way the Egyptians introduced Horus, the son of the sun, long after the other gods of Egypt were well established. The Heliolithic period followed, named after the shift in calendars from stellar to solar. Men built massive cities and now took with them a memory of the importance of the pyramid, knowing the pyramid had something to do with saving humanity at a future date. They built pyramids in all the cities in which they migrated. And with them, they preserved a knowledge of the destroyer, or the phoenix, called the Pin deity, the Apen, Phoenix, Typhon, the Sky Dragon, the Feng, and Fenrir. After the Cataclysm, the survivors recovered and built cities in the Near East. In over 350 years since the Phoenix collapsed the vapor canopy, the Nemesis X object appeared and laid waste to the Sumerian and Akkadian cities, leaving Babylon as the central power of the Near East and melting the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Adma, Zeboam, as well as Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. In these days, the Nemesis X object was called Tiamat, a dark dragon goddess of destruction. Almost instantly after this destruction, a sophisticated people from the west called the Amuru appeared and took over the government of Babylon, the whole Near East, setting up their dynasties in Hatti, Mari of Mitanni, across Syria, Lebanon, Urartu, founding Ugarit, Byblos, ruling Canaan, and settling in northern Egypt around the ancient Great Pyramid that was half buried in sands from its flooding by the Mediterranean when the vapor canopy collapsed. These were the shepherd kings, and they mapped the world. They built ports and quays and wharfs all over the known ancient world. These were the Westerners in cuneiform text called the Amuru, who were the world ruling power during the Heliolithic Maritime Empire. Their vast intercontinental trade empire came to a sudden end in May 1687 BC, when the Phoenix again appeared, remembered as the Ogygian flood. All of the sons of the Sun dynasties fell as the world suffered a 25-year darkness as a new vapor canopy.
Whoa. A 25 years of darkness. It's pretty wild, man. Yeah, I guess it formed a new vapor canopy. Now I gotta go. I gotta look at the chart, Let's see here. There we go. Let's just take a look at this here. Yeah, okie dokie. The Ogygian flood. Where's the Ogygian flood? Vapor canopy conditions. Giants reappear. Okay. 1687 BC, I think is what he's talking about. Okay, 1687 BC is here, right? So I guess it's a new vapor canopy. It doesn't have that little graphic on it over here, but looks like that's where that would start. And then, as it goes to 31 BC, or was that another 1,656 years? I don't know. Alrighty. Well, I just thought we should look at the chart and see where we are in the timeline. That's all. Okay, man. Yeah. Let's get this other thing back. Okay. All right. There we go. There it is. Okay. And away we go.
He struggled to reappear. These immense destructions in 5239 BC, 4039, 3895, 3439, 2239, 1849, and 1687 BC are the hammerings of both Phoenix and the Nemesis X object as they take turns visiting our world with catastrophic results. All knowledge of the ancient world has passed through these destructive episodes and has been preserved by survivors that have left us memories through traditions, monuments, and ancient texts. In ARCHAIX, this history is not only put together, but demonstrated chronologically. These dates are not arbitrary, but are shown in meticulous charts and published books and videos to be an intricate and perfect mathematical construct, clearly revealing that both the Phoenix and Nemesis X will play a role in the near future in the years 2040 to 2046 in reshaping our world. To comprehend what is about to happen, one must understand that prophecies are actually historical statements written by survivors in retrospect. The end of a thing always refers to its beginning. It is of paramount import in understanding the events of the ancient world. We must use the calendrical systems that were employed by those cultures. Doing anything otherwise completely has us mistranslating the very events that they were trying to warn us about.
All right. Well, there's your nutshell. What do you think about that? So you came into this, you were like, I've never heard of 2040 Phoenix Cataclysm prophecy there, Mr. Subtle Moments of Absurdity. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So then we watched the video and you get a sense of what it is. Are you convinced? See, it's really key. Kind of what he said at the end is like the end of the thing always refers back to the beginning. And the real I suppose valuable piece of all of this is is understanding the cycles, right? Because then that becomes predictive knowledge. That's what he's saying. Like all of these prophecies about the future are based on something that happened in the past. So if they recognized there were so many years between these destructive events, then they would start to say, they're going to pay attention, right? And they're going to say, like, that thing's coming, I'm getting out of here. Or maybe I'm going to make a $1 billion bunker for myself. Or maybe there's like some fortified, like deep underground, like a military base or something. You just like hide inside a mountain. You know what I mean? Like, just wait for it to blow over. Well, I don't have billions of dollars. I can't do that. Oh, the billionaires do, though. That's right. They're doing it. They are doing it. Now, they never said it's because of this Phoenix thing, right? They never said that. But there's a sort of like desperation these days, in the so-called power elite. Have you noticed that also? I mean, so yeah. I mean, I'm like, anything's possible, but honestly, this makes a lot of sense. Like, the more that I learn and understand it, like I've been like, I've been watching these videos, man, for maybe 3 months, but I mean, like, a lot, like watching it a lot, and not just watching it, but trying to understand, You know, and I've got the broad strokes, you know. I've got, I've got the broad brush strokes here, but um, the thing is that there's so much evidence that it's almost overwhelming. Um, so I'm gonna go back to that chart one more time, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up here. So don't want to overstay my welcome, I think. And yeah, I'm gonna clickety click. And my goodness, I'm still getting used to this. What do you call it? Stream yard. Okay. It is a lot of clicking. Okay. Add to it. There we go. This is so it's not actually this chart. This is the best one I could find like today, but I've seen other charts that he has where it makes a lot more sense to me because there is like a big circle. For some reason I need the circles. But it's sort of like wheels within wheels, right? And then 2178. So let's read the green boxes across here. Now 3895, we know that's Adam and Eve, that's year one, Anna Mundi. That's the first year after. Like what you see over here going on in 2178, you have to assume that end is the beginning, right? 3895, 2239 here, and now that's the vapor canopy. And we double checked our understanding. And this vapor canopy section, it was 1,200 years within this 1,656 years that you had Homo Wanuna, the Anunnaki. And I guess that's when the pyramid was built. It is when the pyramid was built because the pyramid was in the flood. That's right. So in 2239, the Great Flood, the collapse of the canopy. Now, the like it seems like, right, like there's cycles and epicycles, and like the Phoenix, like the Phoenix event is like every 138 years, right? But the intensity is not the same. So some years you wouldn't even notice it. Oh, and it's always in May. That's the other thing. The Phoenix always shows up in May, and then the it was in the merry month of May. And then the Nemesis always shows up around Halloween, like the beginning of November, you know. So that's curious. At any rate, so that was 20. We were looking at the 2239, that Noah flood, and then what is this? 1687 BC. This event here, total collapse of the Bronze Age. 25 years of darkness is crazy. Temporary return of the vapor canopy. Giants. Okay, that's where you get the giants. The other thing is not just the vapor canopy. It's also like there's a ton of volcanism going on around the planet. So that adds like gamma radiation. So, you know, like the Incredible Hulk, right? Like puny Banner was exposed to gamma radiation. That's what makes him all big and hulky. Hulk. Yeah, so I guess that was 1687 BC. Yeah. And then it goes all the way to the end of the 1656. Ancient Americas, Veracruz, Mexico, Yucatan, all devastated. Total reset. End of Olmec civilization. Red sky dragon seen over Egypt. Continental quakes. It's a pretty big deal. That's just two little funny words we could say together. Continental quakes. It almost sounds like breakfast. But no, it's like the entire continent having an earthquake, you know. That'd be kind of a big deal, I guess. 522. So 522 is really significant, actually. That's like a whole nother. That's like a whole video all to itself, because what's unique about 522 is it's the only time in this whole span of recorded history that the Phoenix and the Nemesis X like coincided. So they both showed up the same year, and that's the beginning of the Dark Ages. Dark. 522, the Great Anno Domini Reset. That's the other thing is 522 is when they started using the Anno Domini calendar, right? And so that coincides with this crazy Phoenix and Nemesis X year. So the Anno Domini reset hidden by the papacy to edit out memory of 552-year Phoenix cycle. So I'd say the Phoenix cycle is 138 years, but that's I think 552 is like 138 times 4. Anyway, only time in history Phoenix and Nemesis X object appear in the same year. Yep, that's 522. And then looking at this chart, it kind of puts it in perspective, because you just got a few of these green boxes here, but it's like thousands of years, between these guys, right? So you got 522 AD is like the beginning of the Dark Ages. We started using Anno Domini calendar and all that stuff. And then the next jump is 2178, Jiminy Christmas. It's 138 years after May of 2040. Phoenix Cataclysm. In the ARCHAIX paradox, the computer simulation done by Noor and Breshears showed that both reality is counting down to a terminus, and that 2178 is the portal number to somewhere else. Well, that's intriguing. I'm going to also point to, before I close this out, right here at the bottom right-hand corner where it says, note the discovery of this mathematical construct in Phoenix Destructions demonstrates that the May 2040 event is not a total end, which is exactly revealed in the 6th seal of Revelation, which reads 25% of the world's population dies. Oh, it does, according to the Bible, the 6th seal. It's funny about these seals, it's something else. He makes a very good case that 2020 was the first horseman of the apocalypse, and that 2024 marks the second horse. Which, if you're not familiar with the second horse, that's all right, man. Yeah. The first horse is the white horse, and then the second horse is the red horse. And that the third horse is the black horse. And I haven't actually heard him say this, but I'm thinking like that's no, he did say the year would be 2028. So I've got these like political characters in my mind. I have these political characters associated with the horseman of the apocalypse. So 2020 was the COVID-19 crisis. And as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, it was all this iconography that you find in the white horse, the first horse, because it's essentially Apollo, right? And you know who swears to Apollo, right? I'll give you a minute. Who swears to Apollo? Who makes some kind of crazy horse oath to Apollo? What profession? Can I put it that way? Lawyers? No. Barbers? No. Dentists? We're getting closer. They wear the white butcher coats. Doctors. That's right. They swear by Apollo. I said a horse oath because that's what hippo is in Latin. Because Apollo was, he was also associated with Poseidon, I believe. And they used to sacrifice a horse to Poseidon by like throwing it into the ocean, just letting it drown. You know? So you ever seen like these statues of Poseidon? He's got like a couple of horses or something, and they look crazy. They like, like eyes wide, nostrils flared. It's because that's what happens when they drown. At any rate, Apollo. And so I have Dr. Fauci, right? That's in my mind, I'm like Dr. Fauci riding the white horse in the apocalypse. And so the red horse now is, it's in my mind is Ursula von der Leyen, because it's taking peace from the world. People think it's like war and conquest, which it is, but it's not. It's not your mother's war, it's a different kind of war. And so she's got like an assassin blade and a cloak, like okay, all right, I'll admit I've got these images I had these images was it ChatGPT, I think I had made them, but I gave a lot of detail in my prompts. You people, some of you people out there are using AI to I don't know. I'm hearing some crazy stories what people are doing with AI, man. Don't do that. But what it really is great for is like you give it some very specific output parameters. You understand? You can get some pretty cool stuff. Anyway, it was just a sidetrack, but the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? So the second one is Ursula von der Leyen, and she's on a red horse. The third guy is on the black horse. I don't know if you know very much about the horsemen of the apocalypse, right? But on the black horse, he's holding a scale, and it's a penny for wheat, and for a measure of wheat, and it's a penny for 3 measures of barley, but hurt not the wine and the oil. So the fat cats, right? Hurt not the wine and the oil. That's the fat cats. Meanwhile, it takes you a whole day's pay to get a measure of wheat. Sound about right? So we're just about there. We're not quite 100% there. This is the famine horse. Yeah. So in my picture, it's like old, worn out, broken down black horse. The black horse of the apocalypse, and sitting on it is President Orange Juice. He's got the scales in one hand. He's got, instead of the oil in the wine, right? I thought Big Mac, because he likes the Big Mac. And so he's sitting there and he's riding his that poor black horse looked like he's about to give out. But there he is, he's riding on, he's got his Big Mac and his scales and everything. He's doing okay. Right. So that's the third horseman. And then the fourth horseman, he rides a pale horse, and hell follows with him. And the rider of the horse was named Death. So I was like ChatGPT, I was give me Dr. Fauci on the first. I want Ursula von der Leyen on the second one. Give me President Orange Juice on the black horse, right? And then and it was the fourth horse, and I thought Death. It wouldn't necessarily have to be anybody living, right? It could be somebody dead. So I said, hey, perfect for this. I said, hey, ChatGPT, give me Jacob Rothschild as Death, right? Violation of community guidelines. It wasn't a violation of community guidelines when I said Ursula von der Leyen. So that reminds us, and this is probably a good place to leave it, but that reminds us of a very famous saying, and I don't know, I wouldn't quote and say it was Voltaire. I wouldn't quote and say it was this other guy, because I don't know for sure, but it's a good saying anyway. The saying is this. You see, you'll know who controls you by who you are not allowed to criticize. So even though Jacob Rothschild's dead, you still can't, criticize him because of the community guidelines. It's a anti-selenite or something. What do you call it? Antiseptic. Something like that. Anyway, violation of the community guidelines. That would be another story, I guess, another time, another day, maybe another way. But the Capitol in Tel Aviv, in America, in the Washington, D.C., we got the White House, which is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right? Everybody knows Pennsylvania Avenue. So what's the address of it? The White House equivalent in Tel Aviv? Which street is that thing on? Rothschild's Avenue, maybe. Yeah, anyway. God bless the bankers, huh? And so that's the thing. So really, let's just get serious real quick on the fact that like it's a possibility, right? This cataclysm, it's a possibility. The curious thing is that nobody is talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. And if you start talking about it, they're like, oh, shut that guy up. Because if it was all just bullshit, wouldn't they just not care? I mean, they wouldn't care. And so the real contention here is the ancient aliens crew. There was a bit of a thing today, I guess, between David Icke and Jason Breshears. And I'm not like, I don't really. It's like when mom and dad are fighting, and you're just like, I wish you guys would stop fighting. But what I can tell you about it is that the real issue that Jason has isn't even really with David Icke. It's with this ancient alien group, and I guess David Icke is thrown in with them. So then that's that. But Jason has a really good point about this ancient alien group, which is Graham Hancock, Billy Carson, Carlson, Billy Carson, Randy Carlson, Tommy Ipsetti or something, Spaghetti Corsetti, that guy, and a few others. And so the thing about it is that they're talking about the age of Atlantis and stuff, right? And then Hancock and the fingerprints of the gods, he goes into this the whole like Leo constellation, the Sphinx is facing Leo, and then and Jason's just like, but they didn't have a Leo constellation zodiac until thousands of years later, because that's a relatively recent thing. They had 18 houses, and the type of astrology that applied to those folks at the time of the Sphinx, and because Leo wasn't a part of it. I don't know. Anyway, but my point is that in the 9600 it's 9600 BC, I think is what it is, and it predates the Younger Dryas impact. And so if you put the Anunnaki, where instead of being in that vapor canopy like we're looking at on the chart, they're like 5,000 or 6,000 years before that. That's crazy. Like Atlantis, because Plato talked about Atlantis, right? But he also said that Atlantis was at war with Athens. We knew that Athens isn't, not 11,600 years ago. So a lot of people place Atlantis at about, I guess, the 13th century BCE, whatever. 13th century, like 1,500 years, right, before zero. Not like 12,000 years ago. Like, that's pretty wild. So Jason's saying like they know better, and the reason why this happens is because of the accounting of the Shar, right? So this is why, like in this short video that we watched of the ARCHAIX primer, Jason's like, it was a day count system. You know, the Vedic calendar was day count system. You know, the Mayan Bactrians were day counts. Like they were all day counts. And so what like Graham Hancock does, and like Zachariah Sitchin really is kind of the first one that was doing this, is he counts them, instead of counting them as days, he counts them as years. And so then you end up with like kings living like 1,000 years or something. And it was like, no, that was 1,000 days. That was like, yeah, it's a big difference. Like, you know, I don't know how long 1,000 days is, like how many years that is, but I might be somewhere around that, maybe 1,000 days. And of course their years back then were 360 days. So that's something else to consider. But yeah, I mean, you can see how you would get really outlandish numbers if you were saying 365 years instead of 365 days. Right? It's a big difference. 1 year or 365 years. So so Jason claims that they know better, and they're doing it on purpose to be deceptive, because if they admit to the 1300 or 13th century BC, then for the date of Atlantis, you got to rewrite history. So, all right. Well, if you enjoyed this, you could like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends, tell your mother, tell your hot mother. You have a hot mother. Sorry, that's right. Just single, Anyway, all right. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, that's good. And if you got anything to say, like put it in the comments or whatever, go check it out yourself. That's what I'm trying to tell you to do. Like, do your own research. I'm bringing this stuff up because if it was 2040 and it's like lights out or whatever, like a big problem, you know what I mean? Like earthquakes and volcanoes, and we're already seeing earthquakes. It's devastating. Just imagine if it was like everywhere all at once, because then that would really suck. You'd probably want to be underground. Make sure you had a good supply of water. Anyway, that's national security stuff. You're not allowed to know about it. It's a little thing we call COG. Yeah. You think you're the OG? No. They're the COG. That's continuance of government. Not continuance of the governed for some reason. Anyway, hey, let me know what's going on. If you got something to tell me, I'll read every comment, because I don't have any. So, all right. Well, we'll see you next time. After dark, Subtle Moments After Dark with Mike Rockstone. And I think I have an outro now. So, we'll see you later. Till then, rock on. Yeah. Oh, wait, I was trying to be cool and have like a cool, live exit here, but I got to make sure I click the right thing. So, yeah. All right, we'll do that rock on thing again. It's all right. All right.
12 proudly displays the television seal of good practice.
Rockstone TV.